And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live. And I haven't actually put the branding up, which I should have done. God forgive me. But I'm here joined today with another very special guest, Mr. Jack Napier. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely, man. And how's your weekend been?
My weekend's been pretty normal, actually. Pretty, how do you say that? Laid back a bit. I had a couple of clients coming over. By the way, the echo, where's that coming from? Is that from you?
No,
or
it's
me?
okay. It was off my. I was doing a bit of second screening, but it's okay.
Okay.
I've removed it now.
No, but
sorry, Karen.
No, but other than that, I've been back on online dating. I installed Bumble again. I've installed Bumble again. Got a couple of matches going on, but you know how it goes. Like, you got the matches, you got the number, and as soon as you want to get the date set, it's, oh, I want to get to know you a bit better, and my patience isn't what it used to be.
Well, really when you get to your venerable old age, Jack, I suppose patience is going to it's going to decline, isn't it? But what's the market looking like out there? I mean, is there a lot of? I mean, I don't know what your area would be like anyway, but is there a lot of women around? Does it seem like it's quite buoyant on those apps?
It's okay. Depends on the distance. And you have to excuse me for not calculating this into miles, but 80 kilometers away from here, you have Groningen, which is one of the biggest student cities in the north, and 60 kilometers south. No, not even. It's like 50 kilometers south, you have Zwolle, which is also a semi-large student city. So that's a good enough offer. Although you tend to see a lot of just bored women on the dating apps these days, and not really women who are into the dating, in my experience.
They're just there for the attention and for the
mostly that, because you have to take into calculation that these women who live in these larger cities, once they go out and things like that, and in college, they already have enough prospects. So the online, and every now and then you get an exception to the norm when you get this girl and she's like, okay, you look absolutely hot, and I want you to come over right now. And I've had that a couple of times. It's like, okay, fine. And then you come in, and within 5 minutes, without properly introducing yourself, things happen.
You are in flagrante, as I believe the expression is.
Yeah, kind of like that. But those are rare occasions nowadays. Like the last couple of months, it's mostly girls who are just bored out of their minds and want something to do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you're sort of back in the game, as it were. So I'll be interested to sort of get some updates from you about how things are going, particularly in this time of COVID and lockdowns and all the rest of it. I mean, in the UK, as I was just saying to you off air, we've had some new restrictions just put in certain areas. They're really targeting the north at the moment. They're targeting like Liverpool and Manchester to some extent, and places up in the northwest. London, a little bit less so, but even we've been put onto tier 2, I think, which means that households aren't meant to mix. So, I mean, it's just ongoing, isn't it? It's just never ending now. This is the new normal of, just this annoying stuff happening. And you were saying even in your area that is the case, or that you're seeing, you're potentially could be seeing some more restrictions coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. They have they've put back a couple of the old restrictions where you can't have more than this amount of people within a certain amount of space and things like that. Yeah. Now, shop employees are actually needing to wear the masks mandatory, but they haven't full on brought up the mandatory masks for civilians yet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So with civilians, it's more like, well, it's favorable, but you're not forced to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we'll see, I suppose, where we go with this. I mean, as I say, it's ongoing. It just seems to be, we're just this never-ending thing at the moment. But anyway, that being said, what we're here to talk about today is dating multiple women ethically, of course, because everything we do on this channel is ethical. As you know, ethics and the upholding of ethics is very much
Oh,
at the
absolutely.
center of all of the work that we do here. But yeah, this whole thing about sort of dating multiple women, and this was a suggestion that you made for the topic for the show today, Jack. So thank you for that, because
No
something
problem.
should cover and have been meaning to cover for a while. I mean, the thing that guys always want to know about this, I suppose, is firstly, how do you do it? Because everyone wants to do a bit of harem game. Everybody wants to, well, not everybody, but there's a sizable proportion of population of guys out there who want to do this, who want to date multiple women. And secondly, there are sort of the nitty gritty things like, well, do you tell each individual one that you're dating other people, and all of this kind of thing. So I guess we can do a deep dive into this during the show today. But I think the first observation that I wanted to make was that, as much as, somebody might look at this and go, oh, look at these two, toxic males discussing dating multiple women, the fact of the matter is that, of course, women do this all the time, don't they? Women date multiple men the whole time, unless and until you get to the point where, maybe you're in a, you've sat down, you're in an exclusive relationship. But the reality is that all dating these days is multiple dating, really, isn't it? Until that point.
Yeah, you're kind of right about that. I mean, women at a certain age stop doing that, but women are natural born plate spinners. They just are, because they get so much attention. They have so many prospects. They don't know where to get it from even these days, because there's so many of them. And I've gone on record saying this before, where distance is now a factor as well. If she has a guy who, rans her through like no other guy, but he happens to be out that night doing something else, whatever it may be, she will go to the guy, not even the second best, but just the guy who's the nearest to her. Like, who lives within the closest proximity of me and who can get over here the fastest? That kind of is a factor right now in these days. Because
so it's like in case of an emergency, break glass,
like that. But then it's like this thing, break glass. I mean, the smartphone for the modern woman of dating age is a box of dicks. And I don't know if I have to watch my language, how much I have to watch my language. But it is the case within that, because you see this more and more where committed relationships are being withheld. And unfortunately, this is not on the guy side, but we could get more into that with the how do you date multiple women, because that is mostly because of the guy, in all honesty.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's an interesting point. And I suppose at this juncture, I might just give a bit of a qualification for why I can talk about this. I mean, like, throughout my life, really, probably for most of it, really, I've dated multiple people at the same time, multiple women at the same time. Just because I guess I was kind of, I'm going to say selfish here, but that's maybe not quite the right word. But I'm just somebody who, that's what I wanted to do. And I sort of thought, well, if I could get away with it, then, why shouldn't I get away with it? And I was also aware that girls had done this to me, and that there was this sexual marketplace, which was pretty brutal, really, in many ways. I was aware of this years before, discovering this space and the rational male and all that kind of stuff. I just knew it from looking around. So I was kind of like, well, if that's what's happening out there, why don't I do the same thing myself? So, I had dated concurrently, from my 20s onwards, and it culminated in my 30s, late 30s, when I was actually at one point dating 5 girls at the same time. And that really is as hardcore as it sounds. I mean, like, literally, there was a period of time for several months where that one after the other would come round each night. So Monday, one would come around, Tuesday, the next one would come around, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It completely exhausting. And perhaps not actually as much fun as it might sound in a funny way, but nevertheless, I've certainly been involved with that kind of like what they call soft harem type situation. So that's sort of where I come at it from. I mean, I'm not recommending it or saying you shouldn't do it, but certainly I've got experience in it. And the grass isn't always as green as people might imagine, is it?
No, I mean, I never made it past 3 at the same time. Be very honest with that. I would have loved to have
Okay.
5 or 6, like a new one every day would have been
Well,
great.
mate, I mean, like now maybe the time. Just keep on that Bumble.
Keep going, keep going, keep
Yeah.
going. I
Exactly,
mean,
exactly.
I'm gonna do Tinder again in December because I had to do a hard reset because they shadow banned me. And the best way to fix that, yeah,
what, what for sending dick pics?
no, no, I don't know. I think I deleted the account too often. Like I don't know, because I wanted to make a new fresh start because I had a new picture and I was like, you know what, we need to retry this. But then I was like, okay, these results are pretty bad. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I found the whole shadow ban thing and I was like, you know what, just cut it off for 3 months, see what happens. That was also around the time where I got a bit sick of online dating. So
Yeah.
planets aligned. I was like, you know what, just delete it and we'll see what happens.
Is 3 months about the time that they recommend then in order to do a reset?
Yeah, because Tinder apparently keeps your information for about 3 months and then deletes it all.
What if you? Well, you have to join via Facebook or a phone number, don't you? So I guess it's hard to, unless you just set up multiple Facebook accounts. But it's not easy to just set up random accounts, is it?
No, because they have facial recognition within the pictures. So you could do it, and you would need a whole swath of different pictures, and you will be able to do it. But what I was saying, like, I never managed to go beyond 3, and that even was a hassle. Like, there was 2 I had together. Like, we got a bit of a polyamorous thing going on, and there was one outsider. So she wasn't involved with the other 2. I tried it, but just didn't manage to get it with all 3 of them at the same time. But with
you mean as a threesome, or as a foursome?
No, yeah, as the foursome. The threesome I got, but the foursome just didn't get it, fortunately. But
close, but no cigar.
No, exactly. One of the girls even responded with, "Is it never enough with you?" I was like, "No, of course not."
What kind of question? What kind of question is that?
Yeah, my God, woman. But probably she was a high quality woman. That's why she asked.
Exactly.
Yeah,
high quality woman. What we need to do is when I get a mixer, I need to get a mixer like some of the guys use, like Myron. Yeah, Myron Gaines has got one, and he's got all these amazing sound effects where he plays different like little sayings and phrases and stuff. So I need to get a high quality woman phrase.
Oh, so nice.
High quality woman.
Nice.
Were the 3 of them high quality women?
No, they were degenerate as hell. I will show you pictures after the show, and you will see what I mean with that.
Excellent.
Full disclosure. But even with like the 2 of them, one of them would get jealous because even if you give one a bit more attention than the other one's going to think things. And you need to have a real strong frame if you want to keep that going. And luckily for me, I got it going for about 6 months.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, one of them became jealous. And I was like, well, if you're going to keep going with this behavior, you're not going to be involved. I mean, I was very strict with that. And that set her straight. But you need to be able to do that. If you can't do that, if you can't keep even one of them in check, you're not going to stand 3 of them. But
that's interesting.
You need to have the patience for that. You need to have, I mean, how do I put that? As we just stated, would you want to do that? Would you want to be on all the time to keep that going? Because one slip up and it all falls apart.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting actually to talk about this because my strategy, which is, I don't even know if you could call it a strategy really, but it is different in the sense that I was seeing different people concurrently, but they didn't necessarily know about one another, which is a very different thing. Because what you're talking about, and maybe you can shed some more light on this, because I think it's an important thing to talk about, is that you were very upfront. You let them know I'm seeing these other girls, blah blah blah, which is is a different model. Because the other thing that guys can do, which is I guess easier really in a way, is just that you're dating around and you're not telling them. So, I mean, was it a deliberate strategy that you went into, that you were just going to be upfront and say, listen, I'm dating Karen over here and not Karen maybe, but I'm dating Abigail over here and Sheila over here, and you're just going to have to like it, or
not in that sense. There was one girl who was the main player, and we had been dating a couple of months and things like that. And I always told her straightforward, I don't want to be non-exclusive. I'm not going to rub it into your face, but just so you know, I do. And yes, I have dated a Karen. Horrible. Absolutely. Don't do it.
I'm sure we all have.
Oh my God. That was, there are stories, man. There are stories. But okay. I was very open with her. And at a certain point, and this is my strategy for getting a threesome, is get a ride or die girl. And my main play was that. That was the ride or die girl. And I told her, like, don't you have girlfriends or anything who could join us or whatever? Because she was interested in a threesome as well. So that's how we got that going. And I was still on Tinder and she knew about it. I even asked her, I mean, I know, very beta move, asking a woman what she wants. But I even asked her, like, hey, you want to be...
Get off the show!
Get off!
What are you doing? Why aren't you a 21 con? What are you doing?
Asking a woman what she wants, how dare I? But okay.
Exactly.
So she kept wanting to date me. And I even asked her, like, okay, are you fine with me still dating other women? If you are not fine with that, it would be wiser of you to just cut this off and look for somebody else. She said, no, I want to stay with you. I want to keep dating you. So that's how I did it. I didn't rub it into her face or whatever. I just was very open about it. As soon as she came up with non-exclusivity, I told her, I don't want that. I like hanging out with you. I like dating with you, but I don't want commitment.
Do you mean when she came up with the exclusivity, she was trying to push it in the direction of it's just going to be us two? Okay. That's right. Okay, cool. And that's by the way, guys, that's the way round it should be, whether you're looking to date non-monogamously or you're looking just for a monogamous girlfriend. It should be driven by her, shouldn't it? She should be the woman should be the one who's seeking to formalize this into an exclusive relationship. Guys should never be the one who's trying to make that happen. I believe, because I think it makes you look weak. I think it makes you look like you've got a lack of options. And to be honest, it's not, your job should be going out there and building your dream, doing your mission and all that stuff, as cliched as that is. Worrying about whether or not you've got this girl locked down is a more feminine preserve, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mentioned earlier. A lot of guys these days focus so much on the relationship, on the commitment side. When women have so many options, they don't know how to commit to. But guess who the guy is going to be who she actually wants to commit to?
The one who's least committed to her.
Bingo.
Exactly.
Because what does a lack of wanting to commit, what does that tell her indirectly? That he has options.
Exactly. Indeed. And I mean, so many of these things are not verbalized. I mean, you're not sitting down with her saying, hey, I've got options. I'm a high quality man. I've got all these, it's just implied because the green sort of behind the ears, is that the right expression? But, the naive chump is going to be like, oh my God, please don't leave me. You're so amazing. I need, and all of that. And whereas the guy who's got options is just not going to be like that, because why would he be like that? Because he's sort of like, well, all right, well, if you want to walk off and do whatever you're going to do, that's no problem with me, because I'll just go over here. Yeah. So that's the vibe. That's the vibe that you want to be bringing to the table, as I say, regardless of whether you want to date multiple girls or just the one girl and, whatever. But so, with these girls then, so the first girl, the ride or die girl, you went on and met a second girl, but did you say to the first girl, right, I've met this second girl and her name is Sheila, and or was it not quite as, were you keeping it much more vague?
No. Funny thing is, she introduced the second girl.
Ah, okay, even better.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Again, that's how you do it. You want a good strategy for a threesome? Get a ride or die girl and let her fix one of her girlfriends. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Now, the third girl, that one came from Tinder, from my own. And, well, she never actually brought it up. And in the beginning, but later on she was like, "You're dating other girls." So I was like, "Well, what if I am? You want to meet them?"
This was the third
Yeah,
girl.
that was the
Brought it up.
third.
But did you all right? But did you tell number one and number two? Oh, by the way, there's now this number three, or did you sort of just gloss over that?
When asked about it, again, I'm not rubbing it into their face, but like the main girl noticed I was a bit on my phone. She's like, "You find another one? Like you want to see?" She's like, "Oh, do tell." Like she was very interested in it. Like, is this a nice
okay.
one? What's she like?
Okay.
So she was very open with it and things like that.
Right. Okay. And so at that point, how long have you been seeing the first one, and how long have you been seeing the second one? Was it relatively short periods of time, or was it over multiple months?
Let me see. How long was I seeing the first one? That must have been around 4 to 5 months, maybe even 6.
Maybe. And the second one, okay, and the second one had been in the picture for a few months as well?
No, the second one came up at around after 6 months.
Yeah.
And she stuck around how long? Maybe 3 months.
Okay, but like then the third one, when did you introduce the third one into the
Well, that's the thing. I never was able to introduce the third one to them.
No, but I just mean when you were having that conversation with the second one, saying, "Oh, there's this third one. Do you want to see the pictures and stuff?" When was that? How far into the thing with the second one?
Damn, I need to remember that. That was about 1.5, 2 months in, maybe something like that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, because what I'm coming around to saying anyway is that my sense of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my experience of this is that in order to be doing this kind of thing, you are having to keep all of the relationships going, but in a fairly casual, non-committal way. And I think that's the important thing, because and you can keep it reasonably casual with a girl, with a woman for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And this I think is maybe where guys fall down just generally in dating, because perhaps they try to lock things down too quickly, or they sit down and have the conversation too quickly, and then it becomes very formalized as, right, we are seeing one another and you are a high quality woman, and and all of that. Whereas if you just don't say anything and just leave it all very vague, you don't have any sort of conversation about this is what we are, this is the parameters of our relationship, blah blah blah. You're in a much better position to sort of get away with this kind of thing for much longer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what a lot of guys don't know are the cues she's giving you that she's into you. Because if you know those, you will always be able to know as well when somebody else is in the picture. You've probably had this. Like when a girl really likes you, she keeps texting you. She keeps wanting your attention for whatever reason. Like, I am walking here right now. Look what I'm seeing. Oh, look what I saw at the grocery store. This totally normal thing that I just want to share with you. Feed me attention. Things like that. And a lot of guys, what I tend to notice, or used to notice, is that they're so afraid of letting that control, quote unquote control, let that go. I mean, let her have the means of communication. If she likes you, she'll text you. And that's how I went on it. Like, I mean, with dates as well, like once you've had sex with them, things like that, I never text them. And that sounds very crude, but at a certain point, they will text you because they like you enough. You barely have to do anything. They will initiate that conversation.
So you would literally, you would have sex with the girl or whatever, and then you just wouldn't text at all the next day. You just like leave it for her to follow up.
Well, at a certain point, you just innately know you could do that because she has shown already that she's going to text you anyway. Now, with a new girl, that's a bit of a hard one.
You might text the next day just to say, "Oh, had a great night," blah blah blah. I mean, some guys make a habit of doing that anyway, just as a sort of like, to show that everything's on the level, sort of thing. But maybe beyond that point, then you wouldn't be like struggling to follow up with her and blah blah blah.
No, not really. Maybe I'm lazy with that, and maybe because I'm a bit jaded when it comes to. Yeah, well, it could very well be because I know what's going on. I mean, I know they have a smartphone. I know which city they live in, so they probably got other prospects. Now, if she liked me enough, she is going to initiate that contact. At least in my experience, that's the one thing that has always happened. Like when you've left a good enough impression, she's going to text you. Like, what do men really want from a new girl anyway? They most definitely probably want to sleep with them. I mean, in all honesty, that's our main drive. Men want sex. But once they've had that, for some odd reason, guys give away the power of conversation as well. Where it's like,
yes,
I'm going to keep feeding you attention because I'm scared you're not giving it to me. Now, what I'm saying is, you know what? You've had the date. I mean, you've had consensual adult intercourse, so to say, fornication. So
intimacy.
intimacy. Why not leave it up to her after that? I mean, there were enough girls who never texted me back anyway. I mean, and I've had plenty of girls who did text me. And from that flowed a more natural course of events of me going my way, so to say, and her wanting to be part of it instead of me trying to negotiate with her being with me. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it like you're sort of referring to, it comes back to the old Rollo Tomasi thing, doesn't it? You want desire that is just unforced and is in any sense of the word, and just desire that is spontaneous and is, you want the people that want you the most, don't you? Because those, in the end, those interactions are going to be the best interactions, and if you have to work really hard in order to maintain her interest, then it's probably kind of not really going to be worth it in the long run anyway. So you kind of, but the other thing as well is this is surely about abundance mindset and abundance mentality, because again, if you are the high quality man and also you're availing yourself of all of the modern technologies that we have and the ability maybe to travel and whatever else in order to have a prolific dating life, then why would you be that hung up on this one particular individual girl? Because that there's another one just around the corner, right? Or if there isn't, I mean, it's not going to be very difficult. So again, I mean, I suppose guys in themselves, and I've been guilty of this as well. They have that scarcity mentality where they think, I need, I need to make sure. And particularly, look, I mean, if she's really attractive, if she's somebody you really get on with, if she's got these qualities that you really like, it's only natural, right? But are we saying that in this day and age, in 2020 and beyond, going into 2021, it's just not the right strategy to be sort of like chasing after somebody in the early stages or trying to keep hold of somebody in the early stages?
Well, I think that's never been really a good strategy, actually, because the more I chased girls, the more they ran away. And as soon as I understood that women naturally want to be the party that chases, everything went a lot better.
And I think everybody actually wants to be the party that chases in a way. I mean, I'm not contradicting what we're saying here, because I think guys also, you know what it's like. You tend to want the girl that you can't get, don't you? You tend to be the girl that's harder to get. You're like, oh God, if only, oh damn, if only I could get her out for a drink or on a date or whatever. Whereas the girl who makes it really, really easy, it's just sort of like, oh yeah, okay, all right, whatever. And that's just an unfortunate element of human nature, isn't it?
It is. We always want what we can't have. Although what I do like is when a girl really knows how to banter. Like, you both know you want each other, but the game is who will admit it first. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just love that.
Exactly. Well, there's that kind of flirtatious interplay, which is really nice. But yeah, so in saying all of this, if you want to be dating multiple girls at the same time, then the first rule really has to be you've got to keep it. Obviously, you've got to find one in order to kick things off. But then you've got to keep things relatively casual. You know, what you don't want to do is immediately fall at the first hurdle, and it's like, dong, oh damn, I'm in a really committed relationship now. Because once you're in that frame, then it's going to be really hard, certainly to introduce anyone else into the equation. But secondly, even to have the freedom in the background to be seeing other people, even if she doesn't know about it, it's going to be harder because you've now raised that expectation in her that, oh, so Troy's going to be around every weekend, or he's going to be around every night, or, you know, at 7 o'clock or whatever. And you need to maintain a bit of distance if you're going to be seeing other people. You know, you can't have an expectation that you're going to be there every Friday at 8 p.m. or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? So you do that by keeping things very casual.
Yeah, absolutely. Although you want to get to the point where she wants you to be there every weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can only get to that point, in my honest opinion, by not being there every weekend. Like, keep that distance a bit. Keep it a bit. I mean, how do I phrase that? Keep the chase alive, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Instead of just rolling on your back, belly wide, and letting it all go her way. Like, oh, she wants me to commit. Let me do it then, and blah, blah, blah. And then what do you expect what will happen? Like, you immediately admit to her wishes, and you tell her, like, hey, honey, I'd like to have a threesome, and maybe we could get that happen. She'll laugh right in your face. Like,
yes. Yeah, exactly. Because I'll tell you, so in my experience, the way that this has gone is that I've met the girl, whoever girl one is, and this isn't, by the way, my current experience, because at the moment I have a girlfriend and it's a different sort of setup. But in the past, there was this thing where, you know, I'd meet girl number one, we'd go for however, through daytime approach or maybe a dating app or whatever it was, we'd go for drinks, and then we would, that night or the next day, we would become intimate, as they say. And then the situations change, because now you're no longer, things change, don't they, quite significantly after intimacy, because you've gone from, are we not going to, okay, we have. And then, assuming that, you've both enjoyed it and it's been a good experience, then you've then passed a Rubicon, haven't you? Your relationship has now gone to something else. And it's almost like, I'm trying to think, I don't know enough about computer sort of like coding and language to be able to articulate this properly, but it's almost like you've created a shortcut that now exists. You've been sexually intimate with this girl, and so there's at least a good likelihood that it can happen again, because you're now on a different level with that particular woman than the guy who she's never slept with, because you've attained that different level with her. So now you've got something with that girl. But the important thing is not to immediately sort of sit down and go, right, so what does this mean? Or sort of like, or allow her to do that either. You've got to keep it very casual. And then if you're doing what John MLD always talks about, which is, always be sourcing, always be closing, you just continue the sourcing. You don't immediately, shut down all your dating apps. You don't immediately stop all of your daytime approaches or going out in the evening or whatever it is you do. You just carry that on. And then, you're going to meet girl number two. Now, when you've met girl number two, you just rinse and repeat, okay? Now, girl number one is still there. You might meet girl number one on Friday and have drinks and do whatever. But because you haven't formalized the setup with girl number one, she has no right, and she's not going to ask at this stage, oh, so what are you doing on Saturday? Because she's not going to do that, because that's going to look weak on her part, And so now you've got girl number two in the mix. So maybe you see girl number two on the Saturday, and then you rinse and repeat again. And then girl number three comes into the picture. And, it can all be unspoken. You don't need to, like you say, rub people's faces in it. But through doing this and through continually sourcing and going on dates and things like this, then in the end you can get a bit of a roster going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or, I mean, if you really want to go balls to the wall, you can have one of the girls go on Tinder for the both of you.
Yes, exactly. And like you say, this again is a slightly different thing where you meet a girl who is very into you, and so she's going to be prepared to help you to sort of meet these other ladies, and that's more common than you think, isn't it? I mean, this kind of thing actually happens a lot.
Yeah, that really happens a lot. Like, you'll be surprised how many. I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you've held a phone where a woman's dating profile was on there, as in you were able to look into what it's like to be a woman on a dating app?
Yes, a bit. It's a bit like in Pulp Fiction when he opens the suitcase and that golden light comes out. It's like, whoa!
All the lights, and everything.
It's too bright. I can't look at it.
Yeah, but so that ride or die girl, she made up a Tinder account for like just women, things like that. But you'd be amazed how many girls on there were like looking for a third girl with my boyfriend or my husband even. Or whatever he was. You wouldn't even know for sure if he was the husband or the boyfriend. Maybe it was the boyfriend while she had a husband. But it is happening a lot. I mean, there is a state of degeneracy out there, and I think there's way more than I have even seen. I think you have seen way more than I have. I mean, you know the good spots.
Well, indeed. I mean, I've seen a lot, but I think you're right. I think there is just a lot of this kind of thing happening out there, and you're either going to complain about that and grow a beard, and start a patriarchy of men of excellence kind of.
I am so fortunate that the gods have not blessed me with the proper beard to be able to ever become a patriarch.
Well, you can't get in the club unless you grow a beard. So
I know. I mean, I got the goatee thing going on, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's a bit more rakish, though, isn't it, to have a goatee beard? I think. So yeah, you could either complain about it, or you could just sort of say, "Well, listen, seems like kind of fun. I think I'll dive in head first and enjoy myself." I'd
rather do that, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So. Given that, I mean, we're talking about ethics, obviously, before, and I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, ultimately, it's the ethical way to do this is to make sure that everybody is appraised of what's going on, right? I mean, and really, the strongest frame as well is to do what you're talking about, which is just to say to the girls, listen, you're great, I love hanging out with you. Loads of fun, you're a really cool girl, but I'm just not in a position in my life at the moment where I feel that I can commit monogamously to you. So now the ball's in your court. Either you go along with that and we continue to see each other, or you don't, and that's fine, but that's just where I am. Would you say that kind of thing is where you want to be?
Yeah, I've always been very open about it once I've been asked about it, because again, like we mentioned before, I always let the girl bring. Women are the gatekeepers to sex, men are the gatekeepers to relationships. That's how I see it. Or to commitment, however you want to phrase it.
Well, exactly. Well, our mutual friend, Tom Torero, actually talks about this quite a lot. He used to talk about this quite a lot. And he refers to having the talk, but he means having the talk on your own terms. And what he's basically articulating what you're referring to, which is to say, at some point, usually like 3 months in, sometimes sooner, but let's say 3 to 6 months in, girl one is going to prod and push a little bit to say, what's happening here? Like it's I've never heard of a situation where a girl and a guy have just been sleeping together and dating and she's never tried to formalize it. Like, they will always at some point try to say, look, what's happening here? What is this thing that's between us, And at that point, what Tom advocates is that you have the talk with her, but basically you sit down and you have some form of conversation where you say, look, you're great, fantastic, I love hanging out with you, I love spending time with you, but you have to understand this is the way that I am. And it's kind of, either you go along with that or you don't, but this is how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, agree.
And I think that is not losing frame, is it? Because for a start, you've waited until she initiates things.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, you're just putting it out there. You're just being like, well, look, this is just how it is. And I don't think that anybody could say that would be unethical, because you're not then saying this is how it is and you've got to sign up to that. You're just saying this is how it is. And if you don't like it, fine, but this is where I am.
Yeah. I mean, the longer I am in space, the more I realize frame is just whatever you want it to be. If you know what I mean? Like, frame is the thing you want to do, and stay firm with that. Like, this is the way I want to go. That is the way I'm going, whether you like it or not. And that to me is frame. And on the ethics part of this, well, at least that's how I've always seen it. I never lied to these girls. Absolutely. Why should I?
Well, I mean, I have to say, actually, even if you're dating concurrently, but you're not telling them, you're not rubbing their faces in it, that also is not necessarily unethical, because as long as you're not lying, if you're saying to her, we're monogamous, you're the only one for me, I've hung up my player boots and this is it, and then you're seeing women behind her back, that could be deemed unethical. But if you're in that sort of, like I say, particularly within the first 3 to 6 months, you're in that sort of slightly grey area where it's like, are we seeing each other? Are we not seeing each other? I kind of think it's fair game, because you're not lying to her. You're not saying that you're monogamous and you're not seeing anybody else. You're not necessarily telling her. But again, what's she doing? I mean, the likelihood is that until you've had that conversation, she may well be doing some, potentially dating other people, or at least out there in the market having a look as well. So this is just how the modern world is, isn't it?
Yeah, it actually really is. I mean, my default standard of thinking is, well, she probably has 3 guys on the back burner anyway. And
yeah, exactly.
It's depressing, but it's liberating as well, if you know what I mean. Because if that is not the case, she will let you know with her behavior. And she won't explicitly say it, but again, look at her behavior. What is she doing? The medium really is the message when it comes to that. And that's what I meant with, you will know when something else is going on. If you have a girl, she keeps texting you all day, 7 days a week for like 2 to 3 to 4 months, and all of a sudden that becomes less. Something in your hindbrain goes off. Like, okay, something is wrong. Like, her behavior is different than it has been the last couple of months. And that's kind of that gut check guys get when they think she's cheating, but they don't really have any evidence other than their gut. And usually it's because of that. And even if you're just dating her and you've been very honest about it, and you and I talked about this before, like, is it okay for a girl to have another guy when he thinks they're in a committed relationship? Well, I mean, first of all, you need to be clear with those things when you're, I mean, again, guys, don't bring it up. Let her bring it up. But even when you're just dating, and you said this as well, as long as she's not rubbing it into your face, fine, sure. I mean,
what if she's seeing somebody else or seeing other people or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, if you've never been explicit about it, being committed to each other, it's probably gonna happen. I mean, we've seen how much attention girls get from simps alone. You can imagine how many attention she's getting from the top tier guys in her direct environment. You're not going to be the only one anymore these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's correct. This is, I suppose, a slightly tricky topic for some guys, isn't it? Because Black Dragon would talk about this, and he would say, she may well be doing her own thing and whatever. Tom Torero's actually talked about this as well. this is a reality of the modern world. But I think some guys may look at it and go, well, you've got to just cut her loose if there's even a suggestion that anything else is going on. But I think that we have to understand the economy, the sexual economy that we are operating in. And the truth is, it's kind of a bit of a free-for-all. I think what you don't want to do, the situation you don't want to find yourself in, is you have laid down your life for this woman. You've committed to her utterly at 100%, and suddenly she's sleeping with the pool boy. I mean, that's very much not the situation you want to be in. But when everything's unconfirmed and you guys are just casually doing whatever, then that's kind of how things are. I mean, if she then rubs something into your face, I would say at that point, sure, just cut it off, because that's not the sort of person that you want to be dealing with. But if she isn't, then whatever. Exactly. Because what are you really in it for anyway? You're probably in it because you like to have sex with her.
And that's what I meant with I never text them after I had sex, because I got what I wanted. To be very blunt, absolutely blunt. If she wants more of me than that, women will text you. They will. I will guarantee it. If they like you enough, and if they're not, and I'm sorry for saying this, if they're not, how do I phrase this properly? I won't say high quality woman because there is none, but let's say she's a tad more higher than low quality. She will probably think to herself, I don't want this to be a one-night stand. I let this guy in for a reason. I will text him. It's just how their brain works. They don't want to feel guilty about something, and they know it's slutty-ish, but they don't want to be one, even though, I mean, you just met them 5 minutes ago. They will text you to just stop that hamster from spinning.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like some connections are going to be stronger than others, and like ultimately, you want the girl who is enthusiastically into you in your life. I mean, that's just how it. Because why not? That's obviously that's kind of what you're going to be wanting. So we've got a couple of comments here. Mo says, Troy, when you were in your late 30s, how did you source women, considering Tinder and Bumble wasn't there? Thanks. They were there, Mo. It wasn't that long ago. Jesus. I'm not 98.
You're not Clary's age.
Exactly. Tinder and Bumble were there, so I was using those, but I was also doing daytime approach, and I mean, just the same stuff that I recommend to guys now. I was doing Tinder, Bumble, daytime approach, a bit of nighttime stuff as well, and also because I was doing corporate work at that time, and there was a lot of women in the building where I worked and so on. I was doing a little bit of what you might call social circle stuff, or that is to say, I did end up dating a few women who worked not directly in my place of work, but certainly ones who were sort of peripheral to that. So yeah, just a combination of those things. But those, I think, are the key things that all guys need to be doing in order to bring different women into their lives. You want to be sort of maxing out all areas, really, don't you?
Yeah, just keep your lines open. I mean, even if you're bored with it and you want to do other things, I will always advocate for keeping the lines open, just so that you have something going on. I still flirt with the register girls as well, just to not get rusty, if you know what I mean. I mean, I won't ask for their numbers while they're at work or whatever, but I do implement some game in daily interactions.
Yeah, definitely. You need to keep the engines running. But in terms of actively sourcing, in my view, you want to be using everything that is out there. You might as well be on Tinder. You might as well be on Bumble.
Yeah, then you want to do everything.
You might as well do daytime approach. You might, et cetera, et cetera.
How is Bumble for you, actually? Like, what's the main difference you find with Bumble versus Tinder, so to say?
I mean, I'm not on either of them now, but I mean, when I was using Bumble, I didn't find any major difference. I mean, to be honest, at the time, and things may have shifted a little bit now. At the time, and this was a couple of years ago, I found. I can't say this without getting laughed at, but I found the women on Bumble slightly higher quality. There was a slight perception that Tinder had sort of bottomed out, and it was just, it was kind of very whatever, And Bumble at that time seemed to be slightly better. It seemed to be a slightly sort of, I don't know, more literate women on there, let's say, but sort of, I don't know. There was just a perception that it was a bit better. I don't know. I don't know if that's still the case now. Probably not. But having said that, I also had quite a few bad experiences on Bumble in the sense of just the girls not looking like their pictures and things like that, But I think both of them, and what else have you got? You've got obviously Hinge as well.
Hinge is pretty fun, actually. I'm getting the hang of it because you can just comment on their pictures, and I find that just being as crass as possible gets positive reactions.
That's quite a good feature. I don't know if it did that at the time when I last used it, but I think you know, like through any of them, really, you can meet attractive women. I mean, there's like sometimes you have to go through a lot of swipes in order to do so, but I think I think they're all potentially good. How have you found Bumble? Do you think it's better or worse?
I think Bumble is pretty funny because girls need to open, and girls are even shittier than guys in opening.
Their opens are terrible, aren't they?
Oh my god, man! Everybody, be blessed you have boobs. Seriously, because if you had to lead a conversation, we would have gone extinct.
Yeah, exactly. There's another comment here from Finesse Angles who says that's reactive. As a man, you're supposed to be proactive. You bring up the conversation first. I think he's referring to this thing about the talk and who brings it up. I mean, I don't agree with that, but what do you think about that?
I don't agree with it, but I do know where he's coming from. Like, the man has to be proactive. I mean, the man has to be assertive. But here's the thing. She already knows you like her. Otherwise, you wouldn't have opened her. You wouldn't have spent time with her. I mean, as soon as you approach a girl on the street, she damn well knows why you're there. Yeah. I mean, she really knows. If you keep hanging out with her, she knows why you're there. But women have this innate drive or whatever to catch the highest quality guy. And you have to let them. And you are being proactive, seeing it for what it is. Like, she contacts you with some bird she saw or whatever, or some movie character she saw in a movie last night that you really don't care about. But what that means is, I want attention from you. So she texts you, and the first thing you do is you don't see what she's texting, you just see she's texting, and you see that as an invitation for you to set up a date. And yes, I even got that from Corey Wayne, who you would say he's a purple pillar, but he had some good advice in there where it was like, women, I mean, a woman will let you know when she wants to see you, and they do that by these indirect ways of communicating. But the thing is that she is communicating, and that's where you have to be proactive. Now, with the conversation, the bonding aspect is a very feminine trait. She wants to bond, she wants to commit, she wants to have emotions and blah, 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 and things like that. Now, when she brings that up, you have to be proactive in what you want. But the conversation of bonding in and of itself, I wouldn't categorize as proactive.
Well, I mean, what he might mean, to be fair, is that what you could do is pretty much as soon as you meet the girl, you could say, you could even do it on the first date, couldn't you? You could sit down with her and say, listen, I'm not the monogamous type of guy. So, you've got to understand that. I'm happy to have fun with you. We could have a great time. But, you just know up front that I'm not going to be like Mr. Right. I'm going to be sort of
Mr. Right now.
Yeah, exactly. You could do that, or let's say maybe just after you've slept together or something like that. I mean, you could be proactive in that sense, couldn't you? I think doing it on the first date is a little bit risky. It could lose you the initial sort of intimacy, which is, I mean, I don't think that's misleading the girl though. Going back to the ethics thing, I think that it's just like people do a little bit of a dance on the first date anyway, don't they? Or pre-intimacy, people are doing a little like flirtatious dance. They're not necessarily putting all their cards out on the table. And I think if you tell her what's up sort of almost before you've even started, you're putting all your cards out on the table in a way that she wouldn't do for you. So I don't think there's any harm in having that bit of mystery. But I mean, what about quite early on? You just bringing it up and just saying to the girl, listen, I'm not in I'm not in a sort of settling down place in my life at the moment. So there you go.
It really depends. I mean, some girls are very serious from the start. Know what I mean? Like when you get a match on online dating and they're already acting real serious. And then instead of bringing up my opinion immediately, I just ask them like, so what are you looking for on here? And whether that is an honest answer or not, and as we know, do women even know what they really want? Probably not. But as soon as she brings up like, oh, I want something serious and blah, 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 I just tell them flat out, well, I'm not the guy who's going to meet your parents at 6 months. And with that, I'm kind of covering my own ass because sometimes they'll think, oh, so maybe after 6 months he will meet them. So, but that's up to them. Like, I will neither confirm nor deny that.
Yeah, I mean, I think... Again, it comes back to your demeanor should tell her what she needs to know. Yes. So, like, she should already, the way that you approached her, the way that you were on the date, the way that you were when you slept together, like all of these different things, the way that you dress, the way that you comport yourself, generally, all of those things are going to show her in so many words without having to verbalize it that you are a certain type of guy. I mean, like women that I've dated have often assumed that I was this kind of player type character. I don't need to sit down with her and just say, just to confirm your suspicions are correct, I am going to pump and dump you. No, but you know what I mean? Like you don't need to, you don't need to sit down and spell it out with her because she should already understand that from your, the way that you come across. And, so that's why I don't tend to have that proactive conversation with her immediately because I think she already gets it. And then, as I say, in the end, she's probably going to come around and sit down with you and try to have that conversation with you. And that's when you have to verbalize it. That's when you have to, But I mean, remember, as Rollo always says, women are. When you get to verbalizing things, that's sort of like the last form of communication, isn't it? Really, that's like the last resort. A lot of this stuff should be happening under the surface without you having to sit down and logically discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't go a show without quoting that man. I mean, that book will be set in stone.
Yeah.
But he's absolutely right. Like, it is women's last step to step into the realm of direct communication.
Yeah. So for the guy as well to sort of demonstrate that you know womanese, if you like, like the more I think guys who do sort of go for direct communication too early on sort of trip themselves up as well, because then she sort of like thinks, oh, hang on a minute, this guy doesn't really quite get it.
You bring up a good point, but there is something going on on dating apps, and you probably know this. You wrote about this on which one was that? Text Game Mastery, I believe, where there are a lot of girls now on these dating apps for friendships, for communicate, for just out of boredom and looking guys to hang out with instead of actually dating. And it has come to a point where, in some cases, I am more direct than I wish to be, where I've set the date and things like that. But I just have to ask because I've been out on dates. I've traveled about 30 minutes or whatever. And all of a sudden she's like, well, I thought this was just a meetup or whatever. I'm like, you were on a dating app. Well, I'm just looking for people to meet. I'm like, you are wasting my time. So in some cases, I 100% agree. I want to 100% agree with you all of the time, yet experience tells me that sometimes it might be wise to step into the realm of direct communication just to save your own time.
Exactly. I mean, it depends on the specific circumstances and the girl and everything else. So we've got some other comments here. Moan says, can you invite Girls Chase author like Hector himself to your show? Well, possibly. I don't know. That's not Hector Bowman, is it? That's not Hector Bowman from Twitter, who's somebody that I do know and I really like his content. If it's somebody else, then yeah, maybe. I mean, anything's possible. Have to have a look at his stuff and everything. Getting Hector Bowman on here would be quite good. Do you know Hector Bowman on Twitter?
No. Oh, wait a minute. I think I do.
He's quite good. He's got some good stuff. I
think I do know him. Yeah, I do know him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Johnny says women use the vague promise of WAP to keep a guy on the hook. I use a vague promise of relationship to keep them around. I think that is the exchange, isn't it? I think that is the sort of dance, because as has been said many times, you know, women are the gatekeepers of sexual intimacy and men tend to be the gatekeepers of commitment. And so that is kind of the dance that's going on. And that dance can continue for a very long time. As I say, I mean, it could be up to a year or even more than a year. You can kind of keep this thing going where it's sort of like, are we sort of thing. And that is very beneficial that tends to be beneficial to the guy. I think it's less beneficial for the girl, because I think the girl generally wants to try to find out exactly where, you know, where she is with things, and rightfully so. That's fine. Jack appears to have been vaporized. Jack, you still there? Oh, yeah, you're still there. Oh, okay, good. I mean, we've been on for about an hour now, so we can start to wind things down. How much time have you got? Are you doing a bit of shipbuilding this evening, or are you,
not tonight. No, not tonight. I finished the new one last week, actually. Yes, I did get a new one, but no, I've got plenty of time for tonight. But depends on where you're going. Like, if you want to wrap this one up, go ahead.
We can wrap up in about 10 minutes or something, or about 10, 15 minutes or so, because I've got to do some bit of stuff this afternoon. And tomorrow I'm preparing, because tomorrow morning I'm interviewing James Tusk, day game legend, which has been mentioned actually in the chat. I don't know whether you
buff. He's pretty buff. Damn.
He is buff, yeah. Are you familiar with his work?
No, not with his work. I looked it up after you tweeted it. I'm like, whoa, this guy looks good. Damn.
He looks great. Very, very, very good looking man. And very good at game as well. You follow him on YouTube, actually. Type in James Tusk to YouTube, follow his YouTube channel. He's really picked up the mantle for day game from, I mean, I'm going to say Tom. I mean, obviously Tom is the big daddy really for day game, but since Tom is putting out less content these days, specifically about day game, you've got Tusk who really, really is running with it and putting out loads of like infield videos and great instructional videos and stuff like that. So he's got some really, really good content. And there's another guy that he works with called Les, and they do great talks and live streams and things like that. So yeah, I'm going to be, and I'd never met him before. He's an English guy based in London, and I'd never met him, but he works with the same camera guy that I work with. So we kind of had that connection, and it's been going backwards and forth for a little while about, you know, can we do something together, blah, blah, blah. So what we're going to do is tomorrow morning, and it's quite early. It's earlier than I'm normally on, but 11 a.m. UK time, which is 6 a.m. EST, we're going to meet up physically in person and do a live stream together. And we're going to be chatting about day game. And he goes all around the world as well. He's going to like Mexico. He's going to Colombia. He's going to Brazil for New Year. He does all of Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be really interesting to talk about sort of day game, but also game in a global setting. Because obviously now, you know, we're kind of all of this COVID stuff going on, but he's pretty much escaping it, because apparently Mexico is kind of open now. So why not just go to Mexico, get a tan, talk to some hot senoritas, and you know, have a good time.
That will be really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the weather is getting shite in here. Cold fall weather, horrible, absolutely atrocious. Raining.
Well, it does. It really does make you think, doesn't it? Because I think, and obviously I'll be chatting to him more about this tomorrow. But like, from what I understand, his strategy or his lifestyle is basically like, well, do Europe during the summer because, great, Europe's great in the summer, but from about this time onwards, it gets a bit crap. So why not just go to places that are hotter and just have a good time, which kind of makes sense because really, I don't know about you, Jack, but I mean, like when I got into the whole online working type thing, I mean, there's this idea of being a digital nomad, isn't there? This idea of not having to stay in one particular place. And I mean, really, maybe someone like James Tusk and also Tom Torero have got it right in the sense that why sit around in a cold northern European city? Why not just go and, let loose kind of thing?
I just happened to think about that today. Like, if it worked, or when it worked, actually, that's the way to think. When it works, I will never again set foot on a cold country. Like, never. I absolutely hate cold. So I will just go to Latin America, things like that, Southern Europe, but never again the North. Like, no, I have seen enough of that. I grew up in it. I don't like rain. I don't like cold. I don't like snow. I don't like any of it.
Wow, it's so depressing. Somebody has said, Genesis says, have you had one-itis? If so, tell us about your experience. Oh man, I'm having one-itis constantly. It's a never-ending aspect of my life. So we'd be here for about, we'd be doing a stream longer than those black pill guys if we were talking about one-itis, I think. We'd be on, I don't know, I think you can do up to 8 hours on a stream. So we could do the 8 hours and then we could just stop and then just start again and we could carry on. I don't know, what about you, Jack? One-itis? Have you had a lot of one-itis?
Yes, of course. I mean, my first couple of girlfriends were horrible. I had horrible one-itis when they broke up with me. I didn't know where to go. And then like months after sobbing and being a useless piece of skin, it was like, well, time to get my life back together. And then the next one came, and then the breakup was a little less harsh because you went through the first couple of ones. I mean, one-itis, it really is something you need to learn to deal with because, yes, you're breaking up with another human being who you have shared experiences with. And some guys would say, well, you just need to bang 10 other chicks. It will work. It actually will. But I'm a bigger proponent of do more things outside of that, like pick up new hobbies, go hanging out with your mates, things like that. Whatever you do when you have one-itis, sitting still should not be one of them. You need to do as much as you can.
Yeah, so you get back on the horse, as it were. As quickly as possible. Would you say as quickly as possible? I mean, would you give it a couple of days to mope around, or would you be like almost like, right, I'm just going straight out there. I'm just going to like, I mean,
with dating, I'd give it a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks. But like with hanging out with your mates and stuff, being as little alone as possible, I would do that directly. Like immediately, because especially now with the age of social media and things like that, you will get, and what's the word again? You will be tempted to look her up on social media.
Yeah.
And you want to avoid that as much as possible. Now, I'm not a big fan of blocking somebody because I think that's a bit childish, unless it's on Twitter. I mean, you can block all the twats on there you want. But when it comes to like someone you shared something with, muting and not making them visible might be a very good option when it comes to that.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean, we could do another show about getting out of over relationships and stuff. But I mean, like the old stuff, you've got to move on. You've got to make that clean break. You don't want to be checking their socials the whole time and all of that. But one-itis, I mean, like I think it changes in nature as you get older, and maybe particularly being in this space as well, because like I don't believe I will ever. I think I can say this with confidence. I don't think I'm ever going to be in a position again where I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this woman is just going to be my savior. Oh, yeah. This woman is going to, she is angelic. Like she is going, I don't think I would ever buy into that thinking again, because I don't think I mean, how could you go back to that? But, and that was more like, probably maybe, the first girls that I encountered, maybe I was a bit more like that, oh my God, she's so amazing. If I could only date her, my life would be, you know, I'd be so much happier and all that kind of stuff. We know that that's not true. And even on a very basic level, you know, happiness comes from within, guys, you know, it's and all of that. However, you do the reality is, and even if you're somebody who is dating prolifically, you know, you've dated a lot of different girls, maybe you're dating different girls concurrently. The reality is there are just some people that we click with more. There are just some women that we just get on better with. And like you were saying before the stream, it's not even necessarily the most beautiful or the hottest. It's just there are some women that just on some biochemical level we just like have that bond with. And you are going to be attached to those women. You know, it's not like you know intellectually she's not, you know, a superhuman being. She's not going to save my life, or she's not going to, you know, she's not some kind of like otherworldly angel. But you are attached to her, and that's just a reality. And I don't think you can really get away from that, can you?
No, you can. You really can. I mean, you're human, you're a social animal, things like that, and you've interacted with this person for a longer period of time, and you've made a connection with that. And when that connection is broken one way or another, maybe you even decided to do it yourself, that's going to sting. And for however long, well, as you just mentioned, depends on how many times have you went through it, how old are you, how experienced are you, things like that. And I think that's where zeroing out comes from. Maybe I'll have to ask him, our High Lord and Priest, God save his name, Rollo Tomasi. But I think zeroing out is most damaging when a guy hasn't have experience with breaking up, things like that. Because the whole spinning plates thing is not just about experience getting girls. It's about letting them go as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I think one-itis sort of persists. You can certainly get, you know, kind of attached to particular girls and things like this. So, I mean, like, you know, in a way, it comes down to a lack of abundance mindset again, doesn't it? Because if you really understood and completely bought into the notion that there are more potential partners on this planet than you could ever possibly meet, which is true, then would you ever get, just as a thought experiment, would you ever get one-itis? Because you could always think, well, you know, I can just go to South America and I'll meet somebody else. It's not a problem. But I don't think that human beings are really, I don't think we're really wired like that. No. I think this is the problem. Do you know what I mean? Even though theoretically it's true that, you know, I could never even meet all of the potential women that I'd be attracted to and would be attracted to me. There would just be too many. Well, obviously. But you know what I'm saying? No, I mean, like for any of us, you know, you could never meet all of those different women in your lifetime. But I think telling your animal brain that is a different matter. I think we might understand that intellectually, but I don't think we really, as human beings, I don't think we really feel that. And so we get attached to people.
Absolutely. I mean, we live in a golden age of communication. I mean, how long has it been since the human race is existing, and how long has it been on that duration scale that we are able to go to whichever place we like in the world? Like, we have so much access to other sexual prospects, more than any of our ancestors ever had. In theory, that is. I mean, not everybody would have as much access as you and me, because, well, we are two of the most handsome men in the manosphere. Let's be honest with that.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the theory of it all, yes, you have more access than anyone has ever had to different women around the globe. But even so, it has not always been that way. So your hindbrain will indeed attach itself emotionally, so to say, to a prospect that is nearer to you. It bonds with the human in your direct environment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think pair bonding is very real. You know, pair bonding is a very, very real thing, and you can't just sort of think your way out of that. I think it's something that happens. But there again, I mean, there are people with different sorts of levels of this. I mean, there are people who are probably more
autistic.
Yeah, or I mean, I was going to say sociopathic. I mean, that's maybe unfair, but I think there are people with different levels of where they come in at this. Some people don't get attached very much. Other people get attached a lot, and I'm sure that's a lot to do with childhood trauma issues and all of that stuff, But yeah, I mean, one-itis is, even in a mild sense, is something that you kind of have to learn to manage rather than completely eradicate. And maybe we don't want to completely eradicate it, because do we really want to be these like unfeeling, cold sort of psychopaths who just don't give a damn about anybody? I mean, probably not. So yeah, but I think feeding yourself knowledge, being aware of the realities of the dating marketplace are really important, because it helps you put things in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Farhan says, has anybody ever re-met with a girl you've day game before? Well, I certainly have. I mean, like, it's fairly rare. If you're talking about just like a girl you've spoken to one day and then you meet her again another time and she's like, oh my God, you came and said this to me before. I mean, that's happened to me. It's fairly rare somewhere like London, because it's, a lot of people here. But it does happen. So yeah, it happens. It's not really a big deal. You've just got to play it off, just like, oh, ha ha ha. Well, anyway, let's bang, or something like that.
Where did you left off?
Exactly. I mean, I've done it. It's even worse than that, actually. There's a girl that this wasn't even through like day game. This was somebody I met through like a social circle type thing, or like a work kind of related thing. And I actually went for drinks with this girl, and tried to progress the interaction, and it didn't. Nothing came of it. So fine, whatever. And then she came to work for the company that I was working for, and I completely forgot that I'd even been out for drinks with this girl. I tried hitting on her again. I was like, oh, we should definitely go for drinks sometime. And she goes, we already did. And I was like, did we? And she goes, yeah, don't you remember? And I was like, oh, well, that's embarrassing. But anyway, you up for it? So these things happen, and you've just got to kind of play it off.
I've never had that. Like, you now tell me a story like that. Ryan has a great story about that, like a girl he forgot and tried to hook up with again. I don't have that one yet. Like, need to get at that more.
You'll get there.
Do I even want that? Like, I don't see them for a reason.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, maybe you're better at managing these things, really, because like really, ultimately, it should be a sort of a one striker you're out kind of thing, shouldn't it? It should be like, look, you've had the opportunity to to get the goods. You didn't take it up then, so now that's it. In theory, but
well, I tend to think like that a lot. And sometimes the girls come back, even though, like, when you've met them once and things like that, sometimes they come back, but I'm very firm with that. You meet up at my place. I'm not coming to you. Like, you apparently did not have an eye for talent the last time you and I met. And apparently now you have your eyes opened, but you're coming here because, well, you declined.
Yeah. That's if... Yeah, I suppose in the case where she's now showing interest and perhaps she didn't before. And actually, I should qualify what I just said, really, because I think that that's fair enough. I mean, this kind of thing happens, if you're somebody who's going out and meeting a lot of new girls and meeting a lot of new people and socializing a lot, what you're going to find is that sometimes things don't come off initially, but 3 months later, 4 or 5 months later, the picture's different and suddenly she's interested. And that could be because of what's happening in her life. Maybe she was dating somebody at the time and she no longer is, or whatever. And I think, I don't think there's any point in looking a gift horse in the mouth, as the expression is. Do you know what I mean? Like, if she, if it's somebody that you're attracted to, you want to get to know, and suddenly she reappears for some reason, then why not engage with her? Because,
in my experience, they tend to find that comforting, if you know what I mean, because some guys make it awkward. Like, oh, you already rejected me. How do I behave? And But then you stand there being confident, like, hey, I talked to you before. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, have a nice day. And then their reaction is very calm as well. Because when somebody feels awkward. But that goes away. I've had that a couple of times where I asked to go out, she declined. And then later on, I walked into her and I was just acting normal about it. Like, yeah, you declined. So what? Who cares?
Exactly, but that's important as well, because sometimes guys will say to me like, "Oh, there's this girl in the coffee shop where I go, and I want to ask her out, but what happens if she turns me down?" And my strategy with this, because I've you know, I've sort of gamed, if you like, girls who've worked in coffee shops that I've gone to regularly, and sometimes you're going to get rejected. Okay, fine. Just go back in the next day as if nothing happened, as if it's completely normal. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, because the truth of the matter is there isn't, because all you did was something very ordinary, and you interacted like a normal human being. You're like, listen, I find you attractive. I'd like, she didn't accept that. Fine, whatever. Okay, no problem. But you shouldn't be feeling shame about it or embarrassment or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is. It's just, this stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, strong frame is the thing.
There's and it's an old Seneca quote, but it's relatable right now. Like, we suffer.
He was a G.
Seneca was pretty much a G, but he had that quote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And when it comes to rejection, that is very applicable, because you'll find that most girls really don't even remember the rejecting or whatever. And the more you think about it, the worse it's going to get. And as soon as you just let it go, it's all normal.
Yeah.
Everything is just back to normal. Like, okay, she declined, whatever. And maybe, and I'm not recommending this to anyone, because you have to be able to get away with it. And I am a bit naturally of an asshole. I sometimes just bring it up for fun. Oh, what are you doing here? Bringing my coffee. You already declined me. Go away. Go. Things like that. Just shit-eating grin, making fun of the whole situation. But not everybody could do that, so I won't recommend it. Like, some guys would make it awkward, but just let it go. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Does anyone know how to split plates literally? No, I haven't tried that. I think I'd probably break quite a lot of china if I did.
I did when I was a kid. We had a.
Well, were you brought up in the circus or something?
No. We had a what was that? A talent show at middle school, and they had this entire circus Far East theme where they had the what's that thing called? We have two sticks with a rope in between them and this weird yo-yo you balance on it.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Diabolo, whatever you want to pronounce it, but that's what we call it in the Netherlands. But they have plate spinning as well, like plastic plates, plastic stick, and we walked in a circle and we did that. So yeah, I actually did.
Amazing. That should be taught in schools. I mean, these are the skills that guys need to learn in order to navigate the modern dating marketplace.
Would be proud.
Exactly. But listen, anyway, thanks ever so much as always, Jack, for coming on. I think we need to cut this one now, because I've got to go and have a bite to eat before heading out to smoke. Yeah, but it's been an awesome show. I think we've covered quite a lot of useful, actionable stuff today. We should do, people have been saying what did somebody ask for? There's been a couple of suggestions for other things. I mean, somebody was asking actually about an ethical way to
break up. Yeah.
To break up with a plate. But I suppose, maybe we could do another show about that. But just extending it to not just plates, but we could talk about the whole issue of, breakups and things like that. Another point. But anyway, it's been awesome to chat as always. Would you like to tell the guys what you've got coming up, if there's anything they need to look out for, etc.?
Well, likewise, it's always fun being on with you. Link to my channel is in the chat. There is a short segment of Red Evening coming up tomorrow. Because I had Sterling Cooper on the last show, and we talked about OnlyFans and how it's not only influencing men, but women, their social skill as well. And we had Aaron Clary popping up in the last 20 minutes as well. So there's a small segment coming out of that tomorrow. Other than that, Red Evening is every Friday, and I do an exclusive podcast for members on my channel every Sunday, which includes Q&A. So you can check that all out in the link in the chat, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jack Napier Knows. That's about it.
Awesome stuff. Awesome. Thanks ever so much for that. So as far as I am concerned, please do hit subscribe to this channel. Really helps me to grow the audience, keep putting out this world-class free content. Hit the notifications bell as well, so you know that when I'm on. But we're doing this live show Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11:30 a.m. EST. That's 4:30 p.m. In Britain. So CAD Live is on those days, so look out for that. But as I said, tomorrow we got a very special show with Mr. James Tusk. It's going to be going live on this channel at 11 a.m. in the UK. So that means it's 6 a.m. in America in EST. So I appreciate that's early, but do come along with your questions because it's going to be an awesome show. It's going to be live, and it's going to be actually, we're going to be sitting in the same room. So it's going to be like, it's going to be like proper, proper game discussion with a guy who's a real G in the field, very knowledgeable, very, very good guy. So we'll just be having a chat about dating in 2020 and beyond, and international game, etc. All of that good stuff. But if you've got questions, bring them along and stick them in the chat, and we can ask James himself because he really knows what he's on about. And he shows receipts as well, lads. Proper receipts. So yeah, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, that's it really. So I will leave it there for now, but I will see you guys again very soon.